Very good evening to all of you. A hearty welcome to our beloved speakers, dignitaries, participants, ladies and gentlemen, for today's national webinar on Ratan Tata's leadership, a modern reflection of Bharatiya wisdom in management under our CESS Talk series. So let us begin the session with our humble pranams to the Almighty. Shuklam Baradaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Vadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye. Thank you. So I just want to give a brief introduction to what our CESS Talk series is all about. So CESS has always been engaging with the stakeholders of education, such as policymakers, universities, schools, colleges, academicians, researchers, teachers, etc., to realize its vision of social transformation through and with education. So in this endeavor, CESS Talk series is one such initiative to draw the attention of the stakeholders and the education fraternity on various trending topics and issues in the education sector through talks from the experts. So today's CESS Talk is about Ratan Tata's leadership, a modern reflection of Bharatiya wisdom in management. So as we reflect on the life and leadership of Shri Ratan Tata, we honor not only his remarkable achievements, but also the values he embodied, like humility, integrity, compassion, and his visionary foresight. His leadership style with modern business practices has set a standard for responsible and ethical leadership. His philosophy reminds us that leadership is not just about profit, but about purpose and impact, creating a better world for generations to come. This session will explore the profound influence of his approach, drawing lessons that remain relevant in today's rapidly evolving management landscape. To dive into this enriching conversation about Ratan Tata sir, we have with us two distinguished speakers, Shri Srinivasan and Shri Vinay Kulkarni. A warm welcome to both of you, sir. I also extend my warm welcome to Dr. G.P. Sudhakar sir, Chairperson, Governing Council, SEED, a unit of CESS, and Dr. Manasa Nagabhushanam, a Director, Ramaya Institute of Management, and also member of the Governing Council, SEED. I take this opportunity to introduce our speakers of the session. We are honored to have with us Shri Srinivasan, a HR leader with extensive experience at IHCL and Tata Consumer Products. And he has closely worked with Shri Ratan Tata with a global career spanning multiple continents, including North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. He has successfully led HR functions in both unionized and non-unionized environments. His expertise lies in developing innovative talent acquisition strategies, fostering high-performance cultures, and integrating acquisitions to create unified organizational values. He has built a reputation for being a trusted business partner, working closely with boards, C-suite executives, and teams across all levels to advance organizational goals. A thought leader in the field of human resources, Kasi is known for enhancing employee engagement and driving cultural transformation. A warm welcome to you once again, sir.
Thank you.
We are also privileged to have with us Shri Vinay Kulkarni. He is an experienced management advisor, strategy, marketing, and e-commerce, and founder and CEO of Alchmi and Ecom Elephant, a tech services company. He recently launched Sanatani.com, which sells Indic merchandise, and Sanskriti Shala, which conducts cultural workshops for adults and children. He's also deeply passionate about building and implementing IKS-based education systems and has been working on developing innovative pedagogies for immersive experiential IKS programs for businesses and schools. He's currently working on developing dharmic management frameworks. Once again, a warm welcome to you, sir. In this session, Srinivasan Kasi sir is going to talk about Ratan Tata's management style, his philosophy and core beliefs, and examples from his interactions with Tata. And Vinay sir would be connecting IKS with Ratan Tata's management style, exploring how traditional wisdom complements his leadership approach. So now I request Dr. Manasa Nagabhushanam to give away the opening remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening and namaste to everyone. Really privileged to be a part of this program with a person who has worked very closely with the Tata Group. Kasi sir is here, and I'm sure that we will get greater insights about the life of Ratan Tata and the style of leadership. And we also have a person who Vinay Kulkarni, who can relate to the style of leadership of Tata with that of the philosophy of Indian philosophy. So on the 9th of October, we lost one of our gems of the country, true gem of the country, that is Ratan Tata. And we have heard of many billionaires in the world, in the country, and Ratan Tata was never listed in as one of the billionaires because he always believed in what we have read and what we have heard about. He always believed in giving back to the society. So the whole philosophy of his, if you look at now, after reading so much of material about Ratan Tata, I am feeling that, see, he was a messiah, but he was into business, right? But if you look at the kings in the older times, what did kings do? What was their primary purpose? The kings had the purpose of doing, taking care of the welfare of the people. So that was the prime objective. It is the same thing. Now you have, I felt that as I read about Ratan Tata and the various sectors he is working, whether it is about Tata Trust or the Tata Business Group, in both the areas, if you see, so there is nothing, no stone unturned. So he's touching, the Tata Group has touched the lives of almost all the people of this country, and especially in terms of the beneficiaries, you can see that when Tata gave 60% of his the whole earnings of Tata Group to the Tata Trust, it means that what is the kind of reach that the Tata Trust had. So if you look at various scenes, like how he took quick decisions and then he made it happen, whether it is the Tata Tetley case, or if you look at the Jaguar case with the Ford, what happened, these stories, if you read, I'm feeling that we all try and get the, that is, we are getting lot of essence, and we need not look at the West for our case studies and what values that, or how our business has to develop in our country. So we have real time examples that we can draw from Tata's life, and we can take it to the classrooms, or we can take it to the next level. So there is nothing, or we have to search anywhere else for the best of the examples how businesses have to be molded. So I think we have to develop a model, the Tata model, for our country, so which is really a true Bharatiya style of leading. Because from in the Bhagavad Gita also it says that, or even Skanda Purana talks about giving 10% of your income as charity. But here it is not about 10%, it is about giving the entire life of an individual and the earnings of about 60% to the Tata Trust to meet the requirements of the people. And one more impressive aspect is that, like how Tata connected to the younger generation. See, because we have to be connected to the old as well as the young. So we cannot leave out a section of the population, and we cannot take any of the decisions. So looking at the Tata style, we can see that how he connected to the people who are already in the organization, who work for ages in the organizations, how we recognize them, and they are leading today the Tata Group. So like we also have Kasi sir here, and they are the ones, the veterans who are working there. And we have, if you see the Tata Steel in Jamshedpur, So I know many of them who have been a part of this, the Tata group of organizations in various age groups. And also in the end, you can see that there are youngsters, large group of youngsters who are working with the Tata group. So being with the youngsters and learning about them, and then imbibing their thought process and implementing the thought process in every decision that he took was very, very unique. I think that in our country today, if we have to, we have always been talking about Bharatiya management, and the light to uh, the world can be given by the literature that has been developed in our country for management, because we don't have dearth of literature. And one of the classic case studies would be Ratan Tata. And I'm sure that his case, or how he led his life, is going to be an example that will remain in the books forever in our country. So I'm eager to know more, because those who have worked with Tata, Kasi is there and he will be speaking. So I'll be eager to learn more from them, and we will take a lot of good things from this talk. Thank you so much. Dharini?
Yes, ma'am, I'm there. Thank you very much, ma'am. And now I request Kasi sir to take over the session. We are eagerly waiting to hear from you.
Thank you, Dharani. Thank you, Manasa. Thank you, GP. I call him GP, my good old classmate, and Vinay ji. And it's a wonderful opportunity to speak to all the participants who are on the call, irrespective of the number. That's not the criteria, but if we can learn a couple of things more about the Tata Group and Ratan Tata, that will enrich our lives, and that will also enrich our professions and the way we think in life and the purpose of life. That gives that's been my experience. And while Dharani has given a good rundown about my profile, fundamentally I worked in two of the Tata companies. There are hundreds and hundreds of examples, as Manasa said just now, as to why we can call not just Ratan Tata, but all the earlier founders of the group. Either it is Jamshedji or Dorabji Tata or JRD Tata or Mr. Saklatwala. Tata was the fifth chairman of the group. He was the chairman from 1991 to 2012 when he decided to call it quits. So we can call all of them the messiahs. We can all call all of them uh, some of the greatest examples in I won't call it India, but in the world of business. I think they defined philanthropy. Either it is Rockefeller, or either it is Bill Gates now, or anybody else is doing a lot of philanthropic work. But then the founding principles of what business is all about and what philanthropy is all about has been established by them. So my experience has been in these two companies. While there are tons of examples to illustrate his leadership style, his qualities, and what exactly he meant in his own life about business and the society around us, I will confine to a couple of examples within the Indian hotels and the Tata Consumer Products. Mansa spoke about the acquisition of Tetley. I will talk about a few examples and the interactions that we had with him that will give us a very rich exposure and experience in terms of what kind of a person he was, what kind of style he had, what were his core beliefs and philosophy. And then, of course, Vinayji will come into play to link it to the Indian knowledge system and management system that you guys do a lot of work and research. So with that, I'll start my conversation about Ratan Tata ji. And I'm not sure whether I'll be able to stick to 30 minutes. To speak in 30 minutes about Ratan Tata and the Tata Group is a huge expectations. And I don't know how many people will be able to do justice about it. I don't know. But I'll try. But if I overshoot by a couple of minutes, please bear with me. And so just to give you a little bit of background about the Tatas, I know most of you who are on the Q&A and the participants, as well as all of you here, it is, from public domain. The group started in 1868, and basically as of today, with some numbers here and there, because the values keep changing day by day, they are about 29 to 30 publicly listed Tata companies. We have a combined market capitalization of, say, about 33.7 trillion Indian rupees, which is roughly 400 to 425 billion dollars. And there are primary companies in Tata's as of now, and the major affiliates, as you know, is Tata Consulting, Tata Motors, Tata Steel, the Tata Power, Titan, and the Indian Hotels and the Tata Consumers, the two key companies that I spent my life with, the Tatas as a senior leader, Voltas, Chroma, Big Basket, and now in the staple we have Air India, and moving on to semiconductors and other kind of stuff in recent times. So fundamentally, the history of Tatas, as you know, that Jamshedji Tata is the person who actually started the group. And there is a whole book or a whole research, PhD research on Jamshedji. Very difficult to get into it, but just to put it in a nutshell, his life spanned from, say, 1839 to 1904. He was the founder of the Tata Group. He started his father's trading business. And I will give you some small nuggets for you to understand what Tatas are all about. And when they started the trading business, his father was trading in opium trade. That's what I understand from whatever readings I have done. And then he started they had ups and downs in their business in those days, and he started a cotton mill and an oil mill, and from there he had this vision for the country. That's where I think the roots started. He had this vision that Tatas he dreamed of achieving fundamentally four goals from our understanding of Jamshedji Tata, because we have not seen him in our lifetime. But I believe that he wanted to set up an iron and steel company in India, unknown of during the British days. And people laughed at him, saying that, how can you start a steel company? He wanted to start a world-class learning organization or an institution, the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. And then he wanted a hydroelectric plant for India. He said that that is something very, very critical. And then incidentally, he also wanted a world-class hotel, for which there is a living example I will give about it, why the idea of a hotel in Colaba came to his mind when he was dreaming about steel, and he was dreaming about hydroelectric, and he was dreaming about world-class learning institutions. So that was Jamshedji. Then we had the subsequent chairmen of the company. But the fundamental philosophy of Tata's, which is very important for all of us to keep at the back of the mind, is that either Vinayji will talk about either the Indian philosophy or our Puranas or our Vedic beliefs of Indian culture. But when in 1839, when JRD was born and subsequently he started this group, I think one of the things he clearly defined was an enterprise is not just for making money or not just making profits to the owners. An enterprise is created so that we are able to truly address all the stakeholders of the enterprise, the shareholders, the employees, the society at large, and the community at large. And his fundamental vision was nation building. I mean, I have never in my life come across a corporate entity which has a vision of nation building. I think like everybody starts the business. If we go back to the 70s and 80s, or when we talk about Jack Welch and the subsequent leaders of Western style of management of business, an organization exists for profits. An organization exists to give back returns to the shareholders. I've never seen anybody, even greatest of the organizations, having a fundamental philosophy. An organization is created, an organization exists because we want to give back to the society. We want to ensure all stakeholders are taken care of, and we want to build a nation. I mean, like, if you look at the fundamental threats of iron and steel, and if you look at all this hydroelectric power and other things that he dreamt of, and each one was a struggle for him to get into, given the fact that people looked at him, people laughed at him that, do you want to make steel? India wants to make steel. India wants to make power. So they didn't understand that you guys had the capabilities to do that, but fundamentally they believed in that. Since the session is about R&T, Ratan Tata, I would straight away jump into it, giving this little bit of background about the Tatas, the basic ethos for which the group was started. And those ethos in the 160 years, close to 160 year of existence has not changed. That's basically we have to keep at the back of our mind, because all the successive chairmen from the family or not from the family have come with that fundamental philosophy and belief in the value system that the organization is created for this purpose, and this is the larger purpose of the organization. So that I mean, the biggest challenge for Tatas, if anybody would ask me today, is can they maintain that thread of philosophy which they could successfully do for 160 years, yet growing the enterprise both in terms of profitability and both in terms of shareholder value, but then giving back to the society, looking at the community, addressing all stakeholders, ensuring fairness and equity? Can this be continued for the next 160, 170 years is the key question. And that's where I think bulk of the time that Mr. Ratan Tata spent as a group chairman, and subsequently after he retired till the time he was alive, as to what the group is for and what he can do as an individual and as a person with that DNA in the group, so that the organization maintains that balance. So basically, if you ask me, I think a lot of things have been spoken about Ratan Tata, but I would say that the words that Manasa used, a messiah, the person who truly believed in business and nation building, business and societal commitments, business and stakeholder equity and stakeholder fairness can coexist. There is a lot of research subsequently that has happened, right? We have seen a lot of research that has happened in this world. And just for the participants of this seminar and some of you who are there, Dharani and GP and Manasa and Vinayji, I would recommend you, if you look at some of the readings like the books on capital, conscious capitalism, and on healing organizations, some of these professors and some of these entrepreneurs, and Hubert Jolly of Best Buy has written a book about leadership and ethics, and so they're very interesting readings. But if you look at how the business is evolving in the world, if you closely look at it and then you tie it back to the Tata group of 160 years and Ratan Tata from the time he was the chairman, he became the chairman in 1991, and he went on to remain as the chairman of the company till 2012 when he handed over the reins when he was getting older. So he got educated in America. He was an architect by profession. He was not a businessman. Again, a very fascinating kind of a combination. He came to the United States to do his architecture, and then he started working in an architecture firm in Los Angeles. And then his grandmother, I mean, there's a whole lot of family history to it. His grandmother, who was very, very sick back in India, pulled him back into the country. And then he said that he wants to give up the kind of lifestyle he had in America. And then he went back to India. He started from the ground. He went to Jamshedpur to start working working at the furnace and foundry to understand the fundamentals of how the product is made, how steel is made. And then from there, he grew into the company. And in 1991, he was made the chairman of the group. And when he was made the chairman of the group, the turnover of the group was roughly about $4 billion. And then when he gave up his responsibility, the group went on to be more than $110 billion, which today is about $160 billion, $65 billion in turnover. So Mr. Tata became the chairman of the group, and then there were key challenges for him in his leadership styles. Many challenges, but I would first bucket his leadership style. I would bucket his basic core philosophy and beliefs. His leadership style was that he was a very good business leader. There was no questions about it. There was no compromise on all the companies that we are in. Either we have to be number one or number two or number three into the business. He was very clear about the product. He was very clear about the business results. He was very clear about the business performance. So he was a business-driven leader, no questions about it. But his visionary leadership had more to do beyond just profits. So that's where his leadership style comes into play. There are many words that can come to our mind as to what kind of a leader he was. I would say he was a very sharp and astute business leader. He was a very fine people leader. He was a very fine societal leader. He was a great leader in building cultural facet, which will bring in the fabric of society and the community and a culture where people work. Wealth creation was not his only goal. So therefore, you would have not found, except in the very recent times, you will not find any stock options or shareholding even for employees. That was never the purpose of Mr. Tata in creating his business. He was a very ethical leader. I would say ethics and business was core to his leadership. And we will delve into some of these examples as we go forward. And he wanted brand leadership. He said Tata brand, the top of the mind recall for a Tata brand has to be a brand which can be trusted, leaders who can be trusted. If a common man is buying a product and taking it to home and it has a Tata name on it, he should believe that this is a reliable, ethical product. That was very important for him. So product leadership, brand leadership, ethics, culture, lot of empathy. I think one of the core areas of his leadership style, I would say, also revolved around, what kind of humility and empathy and social responsiveness, and he was a very resilient leader also. I would say that he demonstrated during very challenging times, and particularly during the Mumbai terror attack and the global financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. I will talk about a couple of examples on that and what kind of a resilient leader he was. And I will give you a couple of examples of what kind of an ethical leader he was and what he truly believed. It's very easy to put these words on a frame and put it onto the wall to say that he was an ethical leader, he was a resilient leader, he was socially responsible, he was visionary, he was collaborative, he was humble. It's very easy to put all these things onto the wall. But then how do we truly try the test of time to say that he really lived these values, he really lived some of these leadership qualities? So that's where his humbleness, his philanthropy, his empathy comes into play. And we will talk about a couple of examples of what it was. So let me start with a few things. I think there are some very fundamental threads to Ratan Tata's life, and you will find in some of his famous quotes. The one that truly come to my mind immediately he said, wealth and power is not my strength. So he said, personally creating wealth for myself or to the family or to the Tata group, and to have a power center is not something that goes with my DNA. So he said that very clearly. And he always said that, in organizations and in one's career and in one's life, life is like an ECG. There are ups and downs. One need to go through it. One need to truly consolidate and stick to your core philosophy during ups and downs. Like an ECG, if ECG is a flat line, he said life doesn't exist. It is so true, isn't it? All of us who are with some blood pressure and people like me who has blood pressure will remember that if an ECG is taken out, we have to be very clear. The lines go up and down in an asymmetry, otherwise life doesn't exist. So he was very clear in his mind as to what, and then his very famous quote, I've seen myself personally sitting in some of the meetings, is that everything that we do in our life and in our career, not just our career, but in our life and in every decision that we make in our life, it should stand the test of public scrutiny. I think that's a very, very powerful word, and I keep talking about it to my son, and my son also tells me that how profound it is, because it's all about, public scrutiny. Everything that you do in life has to stand to public scrutiny. So I will give you a few examples of how we went about. So, an average life cycle of a CEO, I won't call him a CEO. He is a messiah, he's a chairman, he's a philosopher, but then he was also a CEO. And in all the research, either it is McKinsey or Spencer Stewart or Boston Consulting, whoever has done research on organizational life cycles and CEOs, it goes on in 3, 4, 5 phases, right? You have the initial phase, you have the honeymoon phase, you have the consolidation phase, and then you have a growth phase, what you want to do. And then the final phase comes where you say it is a legacy phase. What is the legacy I want to leave in this organization and in this world? Everybody wanted to leave a legacy. Okay, Bill Gates wanted to leave a legacy. Steve Jobs wanted to leave a legacy. Everybody wants to leave a legacy of what they have done in this world. So for him, it was not about defining a legacy, but definitely his legacy is something which one can talk about in terms of his contribution. So with this framework, Ratan Tata, his initial years when he became the chairman was a struggle. That's where a lot of his leadership qualities came out. The group was very, very loosely held kind of a group, I would say. That's the philosophy the previous chairman, J.R.D. Tata, believed in. He believed in a group where individuals were more like, kings, and J.R.D. did not envision creeping takeovers of organizations and shareholder patterns. And then when Ratan Tata took over, he was young. He was having a lot of senior leaders in the group, Rusi Modi's, Sabawalas, Rusi Modi. He had Ajit Kerkar. He had Tobacco Wala. He had all kind of satraps who were sitting there. So he had to first bring the group together, because you can't drive business and philosophy and values until everybody in the organization fits into that group. So some of the things that I worked closely with him in terms of what we could do in Tata is, for the first time when Ratan Tata came into the group, he said what is called a Tata Code of Conduct. And he said that while we have very strong faith in what we do, we will have a code of ethics, we will have a code of conduct. And every single company should become a signatory to the code of conduct. So we started business ethics and business promotion. We made every company, the shareholdings of every company in the Tata Sons was very limited, 5% to 10%. There was a danger these companies could be taken away by either an outside shareholder, or given the modern day of management that is happening, there could be any kind of takeovers of this company. But then his challenges were to deal with these people, very, very senior leaders, significantly more experienced than him, but running individual companies, and then loosely held shareholder pattern, and the group not in a very cohesive way coming together. There is a Tata brand, each brand was worth it, but how do we tie them all into one Tata business excellence or a Ballrich kind of a model? And then, therefore, a lot of things came into play. His style of leadership at that time was evolutionary, compassionate, tolerant at that point in time, get them into the fold slowly, and if things don't work out, we will wield the stick at this point in time. So you can see the traits of his leadership quality there. Very compassionate, very evolutionary in nature. He understands the ethos of the group. These people have all done great job to their respective companies, but I have to tie them together. I have to bring them together. That's my initial challenge. And I want them to understand what is my larger vision of the Tata Group. So therefore, he had a lot of things to do. There were a lot of his stories around it, how we had to deal with an Ajit Kerkar, how we had to deal with the Rusi Modi, how we had to deal with various people. But then that phase took much longer than an average cycle that takes to a CEO. Then he had the dream for the company. He wanted to be in businesses which will truly add value to people, which will truly add value to society. But at the same time, they're all very profitable businesses. So he did a lot of work on that. He came into new businesses, and then he had this entire dream about Tatas are not just giving back to the society or the community or a brand in India. We need to be an international brand. We need to do something significant. So he had his international ambitions for an Indian company in those days. Imagine you are saying that I want to acquire a British company. I want to acquire a Land Rover Jaguar from Ford. I want to acquire Chorus Steel, the largest steel manufacturer in Europe. And every step he took to deal with these acquisitions were key challenges, questions about the group, the ability of the group to do those things, the ability of India as an entity. I'm using it repeatedly because there was a larger perceptions that India and Indian companies, can they do it? And in fact, the first meeting with Ford, they said that they laughed at him much before he took over Land Rover Jaguar, when he wanted to take over the businesses from the Ford. They said that, why do you want to be in this? You guys make good trucks and commercial vehicles. I mean, like, it's a very silly thing you're trying to do. And Mr. Tata felt a bit humiliated about it. But then he's one person who will not be getting back at anybody to say that he humiliated to me. I need to show him what I am. That was never in his DNA. It was never in his blood. And then he said that, okay, at a stage came when Land Rover Jaguar went into losses. And at that time, they approached Tata to saying that, would you be interested to take over the Land Rover Jaguar? And then he acquired that company from them. And hats off, even as recently after Mr. Tata expired, the junior Ford now made that statement saying that he was the most humblest leader I have seen. And if one has to see what is humility, the definition humility was Ratan Tata. When he took over that company, he never humiliated Ford the way they humiliated him. And then he was very clear in his mind that we need to do it with respect, we need to do it with dignity. And when we acquired Chorus Steel and Tetley Tea, there was again, the first time he wanted to acquire a Tetley Tea, people laughed at him, saying that you want to acquire, I mean, and it was a highly leveraged buyout. Tata Consumer in those days called as Tata Tea was a very small company where I worked, and they were trying to acquire a company with $450 million, and which was twice or thrice the size of the value of their own company. And then it was a very audacious move for him to do that. But then he did it. He did it with a sense of purpose. And all of us sitting here, we are going to talk about Indian management linkages to that. Can you believe that the Tatas are the largest employers in UK today? I mean, like, that's a significant statement we are making. Land Rover, Jaguar, Steel, the consultancy service, Tetley, take any company, and then you look at the number. We are the largest employers in United Kingdom today, a country which ruled India. So therefore, his business achievements and his visionary achievements in terms of being business focused, there are hundreds of examples on that. So that is one thread of his leadership quality in terms of how he had to initially consolidate, bring everybody together in the group, bring about a cohesion and discipline in what Tata needs to do, clear code of conduct, clear ethics, giving back to the society and community as a common thread across all the Tata companies. And incidentally, one thing I forgot to tell you is This is the only group in the world I haven't yet come across. If you guys can do research and come across, let me know. It'll be an education to me. This is the only group in the world which has a very unique structure. I mean, like, you just can't believe what this structure is all about. We have the Tata Trust, we have the Tata Sons. Okay, I have not gone into the trust, how the trust was created and all, because that is another 2 hour lecture or 3 hour lecture. Let's not get into it. So we have the Tata Trust, we have the Tata Sons, and we have the individual companies. See the beauty of the founders and Ratan Tata and everybody, how they have consolidated that structure. Every individual 30 listed companies I spoke about are competitive in nature. They compete in the marketplace. They're all listed in the stock exchange. They have to create quarter on quarter shareholder value. And then they have to make profit. And then Tata Sons, which is the holding company of all the Tata companies, which is in Bombay House, where Mr. Chandrasekharan is the group chairman today, another great leader, and his team they have shareholdings in all these companies. Literally now, after Ratan Tata took over, his business acumen and his vision was so great, he increased the stakes of all these companies. 30 to 40% shareholding of these companies is with the Tata Sons. Therefore, these companies have to pay dividends to Tata Sons. And therefore, what happened, except TCS, which has close to a 70% holding, a company that came later and got listed, all the companies have a shareholding in Tata Sons. And Tata Sons is held by Tata Trust. If you look at Tata Sons, it's a very fascinating structure. 65% of the shareholding of Tata Sons is held by Tata Trust. Therefore, whatever money Tata Sons make, 65% of that profitability goes year on year to the Tata Trust. And out of that 65, the remaining 35, there is a history. There is an 18% holding by Shapurji Palodji. Shapurji, the elder Palodji, apparently was a very, very good friend of J.R.D. Tata. And there was a time when the group was not doing well, and he gave money to the group. And then at that time, he was given a certain shareholding. So there is other trust holding some money. 65% is held by the Tata Trust, 18% is held by the Shapuji Group. So, and then the family members have a very, very small stake into Tata Sons. Therefore, what happens? The companies that are listed in the stock exchange compete at a marketplace to to earn money, give back to the shareholders, and they also pay to the Tata Sons. Tata Sons in turn pays 65% of their revenue to Tata Trust. And what does the Tata Trust do? The two fundamental trusts of the Tatas, they work on various things that happen in that country today. They work on education, they work on science, they work on medical issues, they work on women welfare and social upliftment of the country. They work on various issues which are very, very relevant to the country. So that's how the structure works. And I am not, while Bill Gates and others are given to philanthropy and give a lot of money from their personal wealth, there is nothing like a personal wealth for Ratan Tata. There was never a personal wealth for J.R.D. Tata, who lived in a two-bedroom apartment. It is all business running really as business for profits, but then those profits going back to the society. That's the whole concept of capital conscious capitalism, right? A higher purpose and vision in life is one important thread of that, and creating a very inclusive culture, creating a conscious leadership, creating a conscious culture, stakeholder management are very, very important. Now, let me get into a few examples to tell you how Ratan Tata demonstrated it. Let me take with the companies that I worked with. I was with the Indian Hotels Company when the terrorist attack happened. And that was the worst thing that ever happened in an Indian soil. And in 2008, when this terrorist attack happened, and the attacks, as all of you remember, primarily happened in the Oberoi Hotel It happened in the Taj Hotel in Kolaba. It happened at the Chhatrapati Shivaji railway station. And it happened in few sporadic places in terms of people dying, and there was mayhem. The country was not prepared. Bombay was not prepared. And, and let me give you an example of what happened in the Taj. In Taj, we had the entire Unilever board, one of the largest companies in the world. Unilever, the entire Paul Polman and his entire board were there in the Unilever board doing their annual global board meeting in the banquet hall in Taj. All the restaurants were busy, banqueting was going on, and suddenly this attack happens. And then we have employees working inside the property. And the greatest thing that happened in that company, you call it the Tata DNA, you call it the Taj DNA, we don't know. There is a case study in Harvard where I go and present sometimes when they invite me, since I was there on the spot and we worked on this. When the Professor Rohit Deshpande does this as a case study in the Harvard about the Bombay terrorist attack, and then we had not a single employee left the hotel. People are, just imagine somebody sporadically trying to fire at us. What's our first reaction? We want to just get the hell out of that place. We want to save our lives. But none of the employees left. In fact, the whole kitchen brigade formed a human chain. They locked the banquet hall where all the Unilever board were there. We had some of the biggest guys of the Unilever board there. They requested them to just lie down under the table. And then this attack happened, and we lost. We lost employees in this attack. A simultaneous attack happened in the Oberoi Hotel, but none of the employees were there. They all vanished out of the scene. So therefore, it was, I don't want to further go into it. We will not have time into for that. Then when this attack happened, we realized that the interaction that we had with Mr. Tata, and when we got up in the after 72 hours, when the government of India took control of the hotel, when they killed all the terrorists inside there, and then we realized that we had lost 21 to 22 employees in the attack. And then we realized that what a scenario it was. Somebody standing there protecting the guests, still supplying them a glass of wine to keep the guest anxiety low, and then taking bullets, not understanding from where these guys are going to come and kill them. But when this happened, the crux of this, what I'm trying to explain is that when Mr. Tata came to he was sat under the tree outside the hotel for 72 hours, except the few hours he went to sleep. He was personally sitting there. That's the quality of a leader. And then he met every single family of that attack personally post this incident. And then Mr. Tata, we proposed to Mr. Tata that every single family will be given their last drawn salary till they were alive, or sorry, till their superannuation date. And then we said we will give their retirement benefits. We will completely cover for their medicals for rest of their life. And if his wife or children are in an employable position, we will immediately put them into an employment in any Tata company. And the first question after presenting this framework to Mr. Tata, the first question that came to his mind was that what more can we do? I mean, that baffled even a person like me, saying that we thought we are going with a great idea to Mr. Tata. And then he said, what more we can do? Then we started asking him questions, sir. This is what we thought. This is what came to our minds. And then I don't know what more we can do. And then he said that, no, I'm talking about what happened in Bombay. What do you do for the people who died in Oberoi? He was not worried. Oberoi was a competitor. He said, what will happen to that common man who was selling vegetables and meat on the road, who was hit? What happened to the commuters in the railway station who were hit by the terrorists? What can we do as an organization was his first question. So here you can imagine what kind of a leader, what kind of a management philosophy he had in terms of, just asking questions as to what is that more we can do about it. And then we said we have to close down the hotel. As an HR person, well, I told Mr. Tata and my vice chairman and my managing director that we have 1,500 employees in this hotel, and out of 1,500 employees, I have close to 300-400 employees who are not permanent employees. And then we need to close down the hotel. It is extensively damaged. We have to renovate this hotel. What do we do? Then the first question that came to mind is Mr. Tata said, everybody will be paid full salary until you renovate the hotel and bring it back into shape. He said that Taj Group, you have 70 odd hotels. In those days, we had 70, 75 hotels. He said, you have 70 hotels in India. Just send them, provide them accommodation, let the families be in Bombay, and let them work until we renovate. And his words are, you can knock me down, but you cannot knock me out. That's the words he gave to the terrorists. And then we rebuilt the hotel. We sent all the employees to other Taj hotels for 1.5 years. 1.5 years, full salary paid, so that not a single employee suffers. And that is continuing even today. You look at Tata Steel and what happened in COVID. People who died in COVID, while the Tatas gave 3,000 crores for COVID for the country to the Prime Minister of India to handle COVID, apart from providing hotel rooms in Taj for all the medical staff and necessary staff to stay during the COVID time. Every single employee who died due to COVID in Tata Steel have been given salaries for the rest of the tenure as if they were alive and they were there till their superannuation. That's what he did. That's an example about his leadership quality. And then take about his commitment to stakeholders. There was a scam in Tata Finance way back. One Mr. Pense was the managing director. The managing director himself was involved in the scam. And 500 crores overnight were gone. If it was an American company, they will file a Chapter 11 and they say that, I'm sorry, the scammers happened without the knowledge of the group, and the money gone is gone like a shareholder money. But then he didn't do that. He came out and he promised to every single individual small investor that it is my responsibility, it is the Tata responsibility, it is the group's responsibility that we will pay back your money. Forget about the scam, forget about the company. You are rest assured, whatever is the value of your shares. And he paid back every single person from Tata Sons. That's what they did to the shareholders. So you can imagine what kind of a leader he is, what kind of philosophy and what kind of DNA was flowing into him. So that was the kind of leadership I did to give these examples to you. And then you look at what happened in Tata Sons. There was a subsequent, I don't want to get too much into it, but there was a subsequent individual who was made a chairman, and Mr. Tata felt he was not really doing what the value system of the group is, and he had to take a very tough decision to change it. So he changed him. So what I'm trying to say is that he is a leader who believed in larger purpose, a larger vision, including all stakeholders, empathy, and the kind of personal attachment to employees. As recently as after he died, Mr. Chandrasekharan, who is the group chairman today, I read it in the media. I was not privy to it, but I read it in the media. I believe that Mr. Chandrasekharan said that when he became the chairman, he wanted to go and he wanted to renovate the Tata Sons headquarters in Bombay House. And Tata Sons headquarters was like an old, historical building. And we said we will not change the architecture because the government will not allow. But I want to modernize inside. I want to spend about 150 crores. He wanted to take the blessings of Mr. Tata. You know what was the first question of Mr. Tata? He said that, Chandra, you can renovate from inside and make it modern. I have no problem. But I have only one concern. What will happen to the stray dogs? Because Mr. Tata used to allow the stray dogs to sit in the lobby of Bombay House. And Chandra said, sir, don't worry about it. That's the first thing I thought about it, and I made a kennel, and I will ensure that the stray dogs are well protected. There is nothing that will happen to the stray dogs. And now I'm reading, as of yesterday, I'm reading that he has left a will behind. And in the will, I understand that his will says that he has allocated adequate money for his dog Tito. He said it should be well cared for. So his concern for society, the people, the economy, the businesses, the planet, and how human we should be. There are innumerable examples. There are 3, 4 members in the family who died due to cancer. His father died due to cancer. His mother died due to cancer. Today, the amount of money Tata Trust has invested in the cancer, if you are a common man and cannot afford cancer treatment, go to Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, and Chennai, and you go to the Tata Cancer Institute, you get it treated freely. So this is the fundamental fabric of the group and fundamental fabric of Ratan Tata. I can go endlessly talking the whole day, but I will stop here. There are
Yes.
more and more examples of what Ratan Tata can be defined as. I find it fascinating. I find it invigorating, and the only thing I can conclude before I hand over to Vinay. Sorry, I overshot the time. I know that I will. I get emotional about these things, but the only thing I can conclude is when Mr. Tata died, I think the pain that I felt, I would certainly say, is much lesser than the pain my wife and my son felt. I think that is the impact Tata had on lifetime employees with him like me. I mean, like my wife did not stop grieving about it for literally 24 hours. She did not eat properly. My son, though he doesn't work for a Tata company, he went to an Ivy League and he works for some other company here called McKinsey. He, he, he felt that it was one of the darkest days in his life. So what I'm trying to say is that the impact that Mr. Ratan Tata and the group left, not on society, one of us, what I described. So with that, I will put a pause here and I will hand over to Vinay. I'm sorry I didn't your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. The more you're talking about him, the more goosebumps we get. The anecdotes you are mentioning uh, really shows why we call him a leader, why we call him an organizational leader full of empathy and integrity. And he was so much inspiring to people around him. Thank you very much, sir. I know it is short of time, and 30 minutes, 1 hour isn't enough to, talk about such a leader. So maybe in the future we get to talk more about him. So now I request Vinay sir to take over the session. So please.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm muted. Okay, can you hear me
Yeah.
now? Yeah, that was so amazing. We were just I'll try my best. I will focus on doing this in 30 minutes. Let me get the slides. You know, if you can see my slides. Are you able to see?
Yeah, no, sir, not yet.
Okay. Select window or entire screen?
Sir, a presentation is not visible. Manasa ma'am and Sudhakar sir, could you please help whether it is a glitch from my side or?
No, we are not able to see. You have to share, sir.
Are you able to see it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was there for a minute. Yeah.
We got it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's very hard to follow up right behind that amazing talk that has all of us in tears. And Recently, during the Navratri, when I was presenting on the idea of envisioning a dharmic enterprise, some people in my network, when they looked at it, they wondered that, whether such a thing ever existed, or whether such a thing can ever exist. Is it possible? Is it real? But now today, listening to um, Mr. Srinivasan, you know, we couldn't find a better example. And I think this could even be a PhD thesis topic. So I'll try my best to cover this. And in 30 minutes, I mean, this is really kind of skimming and just touching upon few aspects. It's not really the deep analysis of Bharatiya management. So I've not tried to cover every single aspect of it. Some things that are relevant to what we're talking about. So there's a there might be a question. Is this really anything to do with Bharatiya management, or is it just an anomaly in the world of business? But when I look deeply on what our tradition says and examples we have in our tradition, these kind of examples have existed. In fact, the merchants of the ancient times in India, they were celebrated and respected not because of how much wealth they had, but how much of philanthropy they did. In fact, the wealth of temples that we have now, or whatever is remaining after all the invasions, you'll see that a lot of them were actually built by merchants or financed by merchants, and many of them have those inscriptions as well. They didn't just build temples; they built temples, guest houses, hospitals. It's a long-standing tradition in India, right? So we have had this uh, 4-point system, the four aspects, right? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, right? And we keep talking about this, but it's so fundamental. We recognize that Artha and Kama are important for life, but guided by, flanked by Dharma on one side and Moksha on the other side, right? So
Slides are not moving.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, your slides are not moving.
Okay.
Yeah, now that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So, what is Bharatiya management? Now, this is not the entire definition of what it could be, but I've just taken some points. One is definitely derived from Bharat's civilizational ethos, right? Like I was saying, we have a long-standing tradition of philanthropy by business people, and also the foundational operational consciousness of this is dharma. So, and this whole thing starts with managing self before managing others. It's an inside out approach. So I'll dwell more on it later. And you'll see that as I describe these things, now that we have just heard Kashi sir talk about Ratan Tata, you will be able to map it to his personality, the way he was doing business, and so on. But you will see the Indianness in it. And also the focus is on the means rather than the outcome. The end does not justify the means. And, you can map this to all the decisions that he took where, from a normal business perspective, it would be considered a loss, but for him, it was the right thing to do, and whatever may be the price. And also the follows Indian ethical frameworks, which are different from Western frameworks. I mean, we may also call it a code of ethics. We may also call it, but it's not just a bunch of rules, right? These are more of like directive principles. But then when you are applying dharma, it is not black and white. It is more flexible. It is more situational and contextual. And you need a leader who embodies it to be able to make those kind of decisions in those situations. So it can never be an autopilot, right? You can never automate dharmic decision making. At every juncture, at every important point, you have to really dwell on it, think about it, and see the pros and cons, and take the right decision. So you see that happening throughout Ratan Tata's life. And also there is an element of self-regulation, in the leadership, and consequently in the people who work there, right? So Western ethical models are based on compliance, having a large task force, police force, whatever, to enforce the rules. When you have rules, you're gonna have a large investment in enforcing it. But here we're talking about self-regulation, right? Just knowing what is the right thing to do and doing it regardless of whether someone is watching or not. Also, the very purpose of a Bharatiya business is Loka Sangraha, right? So this is guided by dharma, and in a spiritual context, moksha can be self-realization, but in a business context, it is what is the highest good, you know, that the organization can do for the world, right? So when you have this kind of an approach, the CSR concept is, Tata may still have CSR, but actually, when the purpose of the business itself is Loka Sangraha, right? So you don't need an additional CSR. Also, for an organization to be a Bharatiya organization running on dharmic principles, there has to be a continuous learning. It has to be a conscious organization. It cannot automate important stuff, right? It has to be aware of who are its stakeholders. It needs to have a systems view. Without a complete understanding of who are all the people and entities that you're touching, you cannot really exercise that dharmic decision making. And also operates on generating and maintaining trust, keeps promises. The age old saying pranajay par vachan jai, right? So you see that in what we heard, he when he made a promise, he made sure he kept it no matter what the price. So in fact, that is the very definition of a brand, keeping a promise. Also, you can see that he was working with a sense of eternity, right? Because there already been these so many stalwarts in the line before him who had left that tradition, and he had to make sure that he did that as well, and left a good legacy for the next generation. So a sense of awareness that you are merely a link in a long chain, as opposed to a macho American leadership idea where you're James Bond, or you're everything. You represent the company, that kind of thing. So a keen awareness about safeguarding a long legacy of dharma, but also call it a Ardhanarishwara model, in the sense a true Bharatiya leader would bring. Don't take it as male and female, more of masculine and feminine. So he operates with the mamata, the soft and the hard. So compassion is the general order of the day, but when he needs to make tough decisions, he doesn't hesitate to do that. And like Kashi sir said, a conscious capitalist mentality. But it's a greedless capitalism. You want every business that you have to do well, to be a true leader, but the means through which it becomes that is more important than the final outcome. And also, there is no binary or conflict between becoming a big and profitable business and doing ethical business. They are not opposing things. You can be both, and that's what Tata has shown. And like you said, standing up to public scrutiny. Now, this is a theme that we see running from the time of Ramayana, right? It's where even Rama took so many decisions where he said it's not enough to be righteous, you have to be seen to be righteous as well, and set a good example for society. So a Bharatiya leader is one who has done the inner work to transcend the limitations of the mind and can easily handle, diversity, conflict, adversity, scarcity, danger, prosperity, abundance, success, all with humility, equanimity, and fairness, right? So in the West, they call it the mind. In our system, we call it the antakarana, which is made up of chitta, Manas, Buddhi, and Ahankar. Now, Chitta is the repository of all the past and the samskaras. Um, and that is where it can also contain a lot of garbage from the past, and it keeps bombarding the manas with all that stuff, creating unethical desires many times. And when the manas is overburdened with all his desires, it's going to give a lot of work to buddhi, which is the intellect, and forcing it to continuously keep doing the work of deciding whether, choosing. And the ahankara is creating a sense of separateness. It's not necessarily the ego, but a sense of separateness from all the people around you. But in a good leader, he has done the work to purify the chitta. So the manas is, instead of focusing on self gratification, it is focused on the larger good. And so the kind of work given to the intellect is to ensure the greatest good. So ensure that dharma, because dharma also needs logic. So it is buddhi is trained in a dharmic way to ensure the greatest good of everyone. And I've talked about this before. Chanakya's Arthashastra, I mean, it's huge, but these foundational shlokas also, and you can actually map to the qualities and the management style of Ratan Tata as well. So the overall objective of the Tata Group is Loka Sangraha and the well-being of everyone who's in their fold. So sukhasya moolam dharma. So the sukha is we want to give sukha to maximum number of people, but the the foundation of that is dharma. And dharmasya moolam artha. So for that you need to, that is why if you look at the structure of the company, they're generating that wealth so that it can finally go back to people and they can ensure the sukha for maximum people. But then you have arthasya moolam rajyam, rajyasya moolam indriya jaya. So the leader needs to be one who has conquered the fleeting senses. So we'll come to that in a bit. And then indriya jayasya moolam vinayaha, that is the humility. And humility comes from vruddhopaseva. It is not serving the old and enfeebled, but the elderly and the wise. And I'll give an example later where he clearly demonstrated that. And as Kashi sir mentioned, he lived a life of extreme humility for a leader who was managing such a large enterprise. Also, looking at, there's so many things that Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. I've just taken one thing where this business was about transcendence, right? Transcendence in business is basically businesses for the people, the stakeholders, society, and the nation, rising above the narrow, myopic goals of just shareholder wealth, or how much am I making as a CEO and that kind of stuff. So it's about discarding selfish desires, right? So then the person is able to make those kind of clear-sighted decisions. A person who is stuck in selfish desires, he cannot make dharmic decisions. Also, we have more examples from our text. So when you can replace this personal desire and ambition with ambition for the collective, then you become a truly Bharatiya leader, right? So you're basically big ambitions for the organization and small ambitions for yourself. And we have something from the Garuda Puran where it says, desires can never be satiated. A king wishes to be emperor of the whole world. Emperor aspires to be a celestial god. Celestial god seeks to be Indra. So similarly with organizations, they want to go on acquiring more and more companies, and they want to become bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So the Kathopanishad says when one eliminates all these selfish desires, then the Jivatma is freed from that, and becomes godlike in virtue. And this is what led, Manasa Madam and Kashi sir to say that there was a Messiah. See how it is just mapping just like that. Now, I've just pulled out a few qualities mentioned in some of our texts from the Dharma Shastras and the Mahabharata. So these are some qualities that a great leader should have. One is dhriti, patience and steadfastness. We saw a lot of that. Like he said, when he took over, the process of getting everybody aligned to a common shared vision, it took longer than expected, but he wanted to take the longer route and not go in and do roughshod that. And also kshama, forgiveness. We've seen many examples of that. Dama is a self-control. So even the way he dealt with Ford is an example of that. Asteya is non-stealing. When a normal business would have said, we're just going bankrupt and sorry for your loss, he said, this money doesn't belong to us. Let it go back to the people who put the money in it. And shaucha is not just physical purity, but the cleanliness of thought and conscience. It's very clear that he had that. Only with without that, all these running an organization with a structure that Tata has, a person who doesn't have these qualities won't even like to be in charge of such an organization, right? Indriya Nigraha, control of senses, we talked about it. Dhi is wisdom and intellect. It comes from truth seeking, right? What is the truth in every situation? Only a person who is free from, I'll talk about the panchakleshas and the shadripus, he can go and, actually find the truth in every situation. And dharmic decisions have to be based on a clear vision of the truth. And if you're not able to see that, if your eyes are clouded and your mind is jaded, you cannot make those kind of good decisions. Vidya, knowledge and learning. So with true deep vidya, without that, dharma is not possible. And with vidya comes the vinaya, which is humility. Because as you go deeper into any subject, you'll realize that you'll never be able to see the end of it. And that whatever you know will always be much, much, much less than what there is to know. And that is what creates the humility. And then we already talked about satya and truthfulness, and akrodha, non-anger. I think Kashisa gave the example when he went back to into the transaction with Ford. He didn't go with anger, didn't go with revenge, right? He didn't have those kind of emotions. Also, samvibhaga, which is the sharing of wealth. You saw that throughout his life. It's what he did: sharing of the wealth, adroha, absence of enmity and the feeling of revenge, arjava, which is a straightforwardness in all his transactions, and bhritya bharana, maintenance of dependence. I'll show some examples, and Kashisa just mentioned so many examples where Tata's sons really took care of the people who worked for them. And tyaga, or sacrifice. This is a very important part of being a dharmic leader, because you have to pay a price. Dharma is not easy, and when you have to make dharmic decisions with a lot of clarity, often there is a price to pay, and you need to have the courage to do it. And a lot of it also comes from santosha, or contentment. He was content with what, like he said, grabbing wealth and power are not the two things that drive him. And then ahimsa, it's not just non-violence, but an attitude of harmlessness, right? And it's a feeling of universal benevolence. That is why he wanted to take care of people who were the guests of Oberoi. He wanted to take care of general public who died in Mumbai. He didn't feel that separateness from others, right? So he felt a oneness. So we can clearly see that all these qualities are definitely reflected in Ratan Tata's personality and his life. Like I said before, a true Bharatiya leader tries to remove the feeling of separation wherever he encounters it. So Basavarna in Karnataka said, Dayave dharma da moolavaya. So compassion is the root of dharma, right? The leader feels love and mamata towards his employees, customers, the larger ecosystem, right? Which percolates and translates later into brand, because people, you're able to make an emotional connect with people that you have never met, you will never meet, you will never see. And he works to reduce that feeling of separation in the entire ecosystem, because this ahankara is what causes friction in the system. And when this friction is there, to keep the system running, you need rules and enforcement. So it is a very artificial construct which collapses as soon as the conditions become conducive for it. But when the leader and the organization itself is working actively on reducing this kind of friction, then the whole system is held together by that feeling of mamata. So that's what I see in what we heard from Srinivasan sir. Also, the seva, sense of selfless service. Why did those Taj employees have to do what they did? Right? Because they knew that their families would be taken care of. They didn't have to worry about it. But the feeling of love and affection for everybody in the ecosystem that Ratan Tata had, it had percolated down to the lowest employee, right? And also the Shraddha and Bhakti, faith and devotion towards the wise and and the wisdom. So he learned from his ancestors, and also worked very hard to generate and maintain the trust, which helped to bind and build and foster the community. So even after he's gone, that's why we're having this talk, right? We don't have this kind of thing for everybody who passes away. So over the course of their life, a Bharati leader has mapped out clearly what is the relationship with them, their own self, with other people, with other life in general, the environment, and also their sense of truth. So these are very important elements of a Bharatiya leader. Without having figured this out, the decision making is going to be kind of it's not going to have that clarity, and definitely it's not going to be dharmic. So you can think of a dharmic enterprise as having these elements. It is built on dharmic principles rather than black and white rules, and there is a shared vision, and that everybody in the organization is part of it, is part of creating it, is part of living it, and everybody has a systems view. They understand the downstream and upstream consequences of their action, and they are also working towards the higher purpose of their organization, so which gives a different level of fulfillment for every individual. And practices, all those practices and rituals that you have in place that help to ensure that everybody understand what the shared vision is, everybody understand what the dharmic principles are and how to live them. And the dharmic design is for example, the structure of the company that we just talked about, that is part of dharmic design. By the very structure, by the very definition, the very way it is constructed, it is it is not a profit driven organization, but it is profit with purpose, I would say. So as I mentioned earlier, so a Bharatiya leader has overcome these kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, alasya, right? These 7 enemies, and also avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, bhinnavesha. We don't have time to go into what all of these mean, but but if they have overcome, for example, lobha, let's take the biggest thing that's contextual here. They were not operating based on greed, right? It is conscious capitalism, but greed-free capitalism. You want to generate a lot of wealth, but whatever can be done dharmically, not at the cost of other principles, but for the benefit of the people. Now, a little bit about the dharmic design element. So it applies to everything: company policy, culture, physical infrastructure, your communication systems, HR systems, legal systems, learning and training systems. If the your principles and values are not baked into all these things by design, your organization it will never be able to live up to your stated values and code of ethics. They'll just remain on the wall, right? So one is the, as we heard from Kashish, the broadest definition of stakeholders that you can have, where everybody understands that all these are part of stakeholders. Also physical infrastructure that actually demonstrates where you put your money where your mouth is, right? And also a HR system, management system that is forgiving, that is not based on fear, that allows people to make mistakes and learn from it, right? And also can accommodate different swabhavas. And then you also built in rituals that reinforce the principles and emphasize the praxis or the actual practice of it. And finally, designing the whole system for delight, where the dividend will come by itself, and the when people benefit and they experience delight, the organization feels that that is also part of the dividend that it is getting. So as been talking about the structure, I don't know if this is accurate today, but this is, like I said, part of the dharmic design. And yeah, we'll really have to go and see if there's any other company that is structured this way. But definitely, this is totally aligned with Bharatiya ethos. And there's so many examples in the past, like to pull up and share later of people who were, the merchant class, generating so much wealth, but then spending it all on for benefit of society. So in terms of praxis, I know that, I learned from Srinivasan sir that, the greatest training that happens in Tatas is when somebody joins is the storytelling story, like the session that just happened today. Any other kind of corporate training would look ineffective and bleak in front of this kind of storytelling, which is really going to embed the values in the mind of the person. That's why we had the Puranas. That's why we had a whole system that would take the Puranas and then convert it into theater, art, and so many things. And an organization can do the same. I know I've heard about storytelling. I'm very curious to know what other ways Tata is doing it. Meditating on ideal that embodies the principles. So Ratan Tata might have meditated on his father and the way he embodied those principles, and his father on his grandfather before him. So having an ideal that actually is living those principles, in this case Ratan Tata was, is the greatest learning anybody can have, having that person right in front of you, right? So and also I'll later give an example of Atma Avalokana, where self-assessment, whenever you take decisions, again going back and evaluating, was this the best thing I could have done? So just now I'll just go through a few examples I've collected from the public domain. This is an example where somebody suggested that he should give a bribe of 150 crores to a minister to acquire some company. And Ratan Tata responded by saying that it's not something I do. I want to have sleep well at night. And I remember my father used to have this written, when you opened his cupboard, I would see a clean conscience is the softest pillow, right? So it was kind of that. So so you can say all kinds of things, but when something like this stares you in the face, how do you act? So he was willing to give up the chance to have that. If he was not going to get it ethically, he would rather not get it at all. Here's an example where they downsized Tata Steel from 78,000 to 40,000 employees, but then decided to pay the ones that were laid off at their present day wages until retirement, right? It's in the DNA, right? So when a dharmic decision is taken, there is no residue. There is everybody walks away happy and feeling that the right thing was done, right? And then we talked about Vinayasya Moolam Vruddhopaseva earlier. So when Ratan Tata first, was about to take over from GRD, GRD thought that he would let his secretary go or, move him out of his office. But Ratan said, no, let him sit wherever he is. I've got a small office down the hallway, and I'm fine, I'm good enough with that office. And then he treated this person as his mentor for next 10 years and really learned from him. They had a great relationship, right? So this is really, really fantastic, and something to really learn. He had that respect for the elderly and the wisdom. And then here's an example where, how do we expand the definition of stakeholders, right? So here they're talking about not just taking care of their people working in their plant, but also the surrounding villages. Now we now see so many foreign companies setting up their manufacturing plants in rural areas in India, and I have not seen them going out and checking what's happening with the villagers. That thought even doesn't arise. So, but this is in the very DNA of Tata's. Then with the example of Nano, right? So when he had promised that he was going to deliver a car like Nano, and there was a problem in West Bengal, but he kept the promise. He moved to Gujarat, and he delivered it. But even the thought of it, instead of course, it was not one or the other. He went for the other luxury segment as well. But the very, very thought behind this, the intent behind this, was to see these, smaller families, being able to afford a car, right? And finally, an example of evaluating your own actions and having the humility to admit mistakes in public. Where he is talking about the decision to hire Cyrus Mistry and how he got blinded by his British education. Later on, he regretted not being part of that decision-making process. So again, it's the straightforwardness, having a clean chitta and consciousness, and closing the books every single day, not taking anything to the next day. I think these are all great examples of Bharatiya model of management. Of course, I can't say that. We have forgotten it. It's very good that we're having this discussion. I think more companies should emulate him, and it should be taught in business schools. I think right now we are running based on American and European management models. Hope over the next 10 years we'll see the dawn of Bharatiya management again. So the final thing is, like you said, it's almost like the final thing. When you look back at your life, he said, what matters most is that you did the right thing in every situation. And I think he did. So thank you very much. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Sudhakar, sir, would you like to add up? Would you like to say a few words about the session?
Yeah, it was very invigorating and wonderful session. I'd like to thank both Srini and Vinayji for, I think taking us through his entire life and work, and also whatever he stood for. Like Vinay just said at the end, definitely something that we should think about teaching younger businessmen and younger students of business. Thanks to the speakers. I enjoyed every bit of today evening. Both of them were very well prepared and wonderful. Yeah, articulated everything so well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kasi sir, for your reflections on Mr. Tata's management style, his philosophy, and core beliefs, along with some of the anecdotes. We were hearing about it, but we got to hear more from you. And when we hear about Tata's emphasis on humility and his long-term vision, it reminds us that great leadership is not just about making success and making milestones, but also it is the compassion and the resilience one will have in the journey. So thank you we are very much grateful, sir, for your time. You readily agreed to take up the session and share your experiences about Tata, sir. Thank you once again. And Vinay, sir, you wonderfully connected, Mr. Tata's management thing to insights with BM principles. That was beautifully highlighted how traditional wisdom, such as Chanakya's Arthashastra, teachings from Bhagavad Gita, that aligns beautifully with the ethos Tata's leadership carried. For that matter, the legacy, Tata's legacy, I should say, and Ratan Tata was very much successful in enhancing that legacy. So Tata's approach exemplifies a dharmic enterprise where personal desires are replaced by serving the society. So it was a wonderful session, sir. Thank you very much, Vinay sir. And Manasa ma'am, thank you very much for being there throughout the session and giving opening remarks to the session, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Well, it was really wonderful listening to Kasi. Amazing about the live examples and then how you got connected. Then
There, a couple of Q&As. I think if you're running short of time, we would take Q&As offline.
okay, that will be good.
Yes, sir. So one question is, do you think that Tata Group is successful in spreading ethics within the company? I hope they have got the answer when they listened, when they got to hear to your anecdotes. Yeah, please, sir.
I said very clearly, the challenge for the Tata Group going forward is to protect that fabric. And that is what all his life Ratan Tata strived for. We have a current group chairman who lives those values. And then we have now Noel Tata, his half-brother who has taken over the Tata Trust, who is also completely in sync with what the Tata Group is and what needs to be carried forward. So if the principles and ethos could be preserved and lived in the organization for 150 years, I don't see that not being lived for the next 150 years. So the answer is very clear. I think that is the fundamental DNA, and that DNA will continue irrespective of technology, artificial intelligence, the world changing. That will remain the fundamental DNA.
Yes, there is one more question. What major principles of Ratan Tata sir's governance will help modern organizations? Nice, sir.
I think many of them will benefit modern organizations. That's why we are seeing, as Vinayji has rightly mentioned, if you look at the management principles way in Europe and in US and in the Western world, I think today we are talking about conscious capitalism. We are talking about a healing organization, right? So businesses have become so ruthless that a stage has come where we are talking about healing an organization. We are talking about we don't have to emulate the Tata model consciously, but the world is moving towards. The world is moving towards. So we need to be responsible employers. There has to be a larger purpose. There has to be a larger commitment to the organization. And once you lose sight of the larger purpose, and once you think that it's all about ruthless business of profitability, then that's not going to happen. Sustainability, the world is talking about preserving the planet, preserving ecosystem, climate change, how we can generate, power in this world, or how we can generate energy in this world, not in terms of destroying the planet and the society, how we can talk about green revolution. I think all these things are moving towards that larger excellence of organizations. Either we call it Western, Indian, I think ultimately it'll all boil down, it'll all come.
Vinay sir, would you like to add some insights to it?
Yeah, I think it's it takes a long time to build a DNA like this, and it doesn't disintegrate just like that. Every single person who's there in the company today has been recruited through that thinking process, right? So it's not independent of that DNA. So then that DNA gets multiplied and replicated, and it's like a cell multiplication, right? So then it becomes it's not a company, it's an organization. It's not it's an organism. It's an organism. It has its own consciousness, right? And so I think as long as they have the rituals to keep that consciousness clean and good, I think it should continue. But I think it's important to have the right kind of rituals to keep it going. Yeah.
So one last question we can take. Does
When Vinay sir said one
Yes,
point,
sir.
Yata Ande Tata Brahmande, that can be related to an organization also. That's what you meant. Correct?
Yes.
I liked it. I like the concept actually.
Yeah, it's the founder is the first cell.
Yeah.
He multiplies. So then you have the whole organism around you, right? But from that first cell.
True.
True, sir. Yeah. Does sustainable business practices can connect with business ecosystem using ethos? Question by Satvik.
What?
Does sustainable business practices can connect with business ecosystem using ethos?
I mean, is he saying that is it possible to be really sustainable and ethical? Is that what he's saying?
Probably he means so. Is it possible to build a business ecosystem based on these things? Is it possible to develop a sustainable business practice that is totally based on ethos?
Possible.
Yeah.
I will take a minute to answer that question. Is it is truly possible to create a sustainable business with profitability and with the ethos that one holds, And I will give you a very simple example. The second company within Tata's I worked is in the business of tea and coffee, okay? Tea and coffee are nothing but plants, okay? You can romanticize tea and coffee with flavors and the Starbucks and everything. But ultimately, tea and coffee are coming from two plants, right? Camellia sinensis for the tea plant and the coffee plant. So basically, what happens is sustainability becomes very important there. Sustainable plantation practices, ethical plantation practices, ensuring that you buy tea only from those plantations which are ethically doing. They don't have child labor. They don't use pesticides which are truly harmful to the customer. So sometimes many organizations shortcut this. Why do they shortcut this? Profitability is at the fore. But if you are a business where you assure every single customer that the tea you drink is the tea that comes from ethical sourcing, ethical management practices, ethical kind of a thing, you can do it. You have to compromise a bit of a profit on that, but then it's the basic philosophy in business. So sustainability in the business and sustainable initiatives Will they sustain? The ethos in the organization is a fundamental belief the leadership has to have. And if you believe in that and you want to truly deliver that, it will cost you a little more. It will give you a little bit of less practice, but then you can make the world and the planet better. It's possible.
Vinay, sir?
Yeah, so I want to add, there is a kind of impact analysis that you can do. And I can share that too later. So you can actually come up with the most broadest list of stakeholders you can think of, make it very broad, and look at what is the impact of this product or service I'm going to introduce on all these stakeholders. Is there a negative impact or a positive impact? And also look at history, where something like this has been done and what was the result of it. So it's a very simple kind of thing, but most companies don't do it because you define maybe you're impacting 100 entities, and you may define your stakeholder list as only 30. The remaining 70 you may not care about, right? And you may not even know about. So to be really dharmic, you have to be very smart. You have to have a systems view. You have to do some real work into finding out who is being impacted, and then checking what is the impact you're having on these things. That also costs some money to check the impact. But in the end, you can sleep peacefully.
Yes, sir. So once again, thank you, both the speakers for the session. Thank you, Mansa ma'am. Thank you, Sudhakar sir. And last but not the least, thank you all the participants for your active engagement in the session and making this session meaningful. Thank you all.